Right now, at this very moment, your person is staring at their phone. Not scrolling, not texting anyone, just staring. Thinking about you. Their chest is tight. Their mind will not slow down. They keep replaying moments they cannot change and words they never found the courage to say. And here is what nobody tells you about that kind of silence. It is not emptiness. It is an explosion happening in slow motion. Something is cracking open inside the person you once gave everything to. And they are terrified. Terrified that you will never know. Terrified that the window is closing. Terrified that they waited too long. Stay with this message, because what you are about to hear is exactly what they wish they had the strength to tell you themselves. This is the message they wrote inside their head 1,000 times and deleted every single time. Welcome. Something is breaking inside your person right now, not slowly, not gradually, all at once. And they are absolutely terrified that you will never find out. Your person has been carrying something deeply buried for far longer than they will ever admit, longer than you have any idea about. They did not simply wake up indifferent. They did not stop caring or move forward as smoothly as they pretended. Instead, they buried emotions they were not equipped to face. And here is what most people do not understand about buried feelings. They do not dissolve. They do not fade with time. They accumulate. They build pressure quietly, invisibly, until something finally cracks them open from the inside. This message was not born from confidence. It was born from panic. Your person is not settled. They are not at peace. They are unraveling emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. Something shifted recently. Something small, maybe. Maybe they saw something that pulled your memory forward without warning. Maybe they heard your name somewhere. Maybe life grew still enough that the truth became deafening. Whatever the trigger was, it shook them completely awake. And now they are confronting something that genuinely frightens them. The real possibility that they might lose you permanently. That awareness did not arrive softly. It crashed into them during the late hours when distractions stopped working, when scrolling felt hollow, when laughing with others felt borrowed. The quiet forced them to answer the questions they had been expertly avoiding. They noticed something that cuts right through them. Nobody else compares. Nobody else listens the way you did. Nobody else understands them without making them feel exposed or judged. Your presence felt like shelter without being suffocating. That is when the rush arrived. And urgency does not come only from love. It comes from recognizing that something truly irreplaceable is slipping away right in front of you. If your person could speak without ego or fear controlling their words, they would tell you they should have moved sooner. They believed they had more time. They never imagined you would begin to pull back. They never calculated how deeply their silence would wound you. They are finally discovering that inaction is still a decision, and that decision cost them the closeness they had with you. They carry real regret for not showing up when it counted, for staying silent when you needed to hear something real, for choosing safety over honesty when you deserved the actual truth. Back then, silence felt like protection. Distance felt like strength. They convinced themselves that pulling back was a form of control. But withdrawal always collects its debt, without fail, every single time. And now, the debt has arrived. Your person struggles deeply with emotional expression, not because they feel nothing, but because they feel absolutely everything and cannot manage the weight of it all. Vulnerability felt like an open invitation to be rejected. Opening up felt like surrendering control over the one thing that made them feel safe. Admitting their real feelings meant confronting parts of themselves they were not ready to examine. A powerful truth exists in psychology that most people live without ever recognizing. What remains hidden does not disappear. It governs your life from the shadows, and you eventually call the consequences destiny. Your person lived exactly that reality without ever seeing it clearly. Rather than confronting their emotions, they allowed fear and pride to steer every choice. They let silence be their voice. And now those invisible decisions have produced consequences they can no longer look away from. Think about that. Every time they chose silence over honesty, they were writing the story that is now playing out. They did not see it then. They see it with painful clarity now. And if you have ever done the same, stay with this message. Because what comes next will shift something inside you too. They can feel you shifting. This is critical. Your person senses that you are fundamentally different now. Your energy carries a different weight than before. Your responses have changed in their texture. Your silence now communicates far more than your words ever did. You may still care, but you are no longer chasing them for explanations. You are no longer justifying yourself or suspended in quiet suffering. You are no longer the person sitting by the phone waiting, and that alarms them deeply. Because they leaned on your patience and your warmth far more than was fair. They assumed you would remain soft and constant while they stayed guarded and closed off. They expected you to always be waiting. They never anticipated you would reach the point where you simply chose your own life instead. Now they feel that shift. What terrifies them about losing you is not simply your absence. It is losing the way you made them feel truly known. They are losing the emotional foundation they never learned how to protect. They are beginning to understand that some bonds cannot be rebuilt, some connections cannot be duplicated, and they are asking themselves in the quiet moments whether they destroyed the one relationship that actually held any real meaning. That question follows them everywhere, into conversations with others, into moments when they try to move forward, into every comparison where everyone else immediately falls short of you. This is where the urgency is coming from. It is not about control. It is about sensing that time has almost expired. They feel that if they delay any further, you will become emotionally unreachable. They sense a door closing, not with a violent slam, but with a soft and final click. That is the more dangerous kind, because once it shuts, it rarely reopens. They want to reach out. They want to apologize without hiding behind excuses. But fear has not released them yet. Fear whispers, what if it is already too late? What if you simply do not care anymore? So they freeze. They compose messages and erase them. They rehearse full conversations in their mind that never actually leave it, while the urgency keeps compounding with every passing day. And here is what you need to understand right now. Most people stop here. They see someone panicking and they mistake that panic for transformation. But panic and transformation are not the same thing. Not even close. Urgency does not confirm that someone is genuinely prepared to change. It only confirms that they are finally absorbing the consequences of how they behaved. And that is a very different thing. Hold that in your mind as you continue listening. Your person feels this pressure because they are finally absorbing the weight of their own choices. They are revisiting old moments and seeing them through completely different eyes now, through the filter of loss rather than the filter of ego. They remember how you checked in on them without being asked. They remember how you chose to understand rather than accuse. They recognize now that you were meeting them at an emotional depth they had absolutely no readiness for. They were not equipped to receive what you were offering, and rather than growing toward it, they retreated from it. What once felt like comfortable space to them now feels like an enormous and terrifying distance. They sense that you are no longer positioning your life around their confusion. You are no longer holding space for their emotional unavailability. They fear you have found genuine peace without them, that you no longer hunger for explanations or dramatic resolution, that you simply moved forward. That terrifies them, because they relied on your consistent presence. They relied on you being there. They see now that you were never asking for perfection. You were only asking for presence, only asking for consistency. They chose comfort over courage and dressed it up as needing space. But readiness is always a choice. And they did not make it when your heart was still wide open. That recognition stings in a way that will not fade quickly. They feel it in the way you communicate now, in the fact that you no longer audition for your own worth. They assumed your gentleness meant unlimited patience. They miscalculated completely. Even the deepest patience eventually finds its boundary. And that boundary was not a wall you built out of cruelty. It was a line you drew out of self-respect. There is a difference. They are now suspended between wanting you back and dreading the actual effort required to genuinely deserve you. This is why their presence feels disorganized and scattered. They carry no inner peace because their actions have never matched their feelings. They fantasize about being different, but reality demands they actually follow through, and that is precisely where fear stops them every single time. They are terrified of failing you the same way all over again, and that fear keeps them circling without ever landing. You have moved past the place of simply waiting for words. You are now watching for actual transformation. You have matured through all of this. You did the demanding work of sitting inside your own pain and emerging with clarity. Your person is only now beginning that same difficult process. Even if they do speak, nothing can simply reset to what it once was. Because trust has been fundamentally altered. They stand at a threshold right now. Behind them is the familiar safety of concealment. In front of them is the exposed risk of true honesty. They understand that staying still means losing you completely, but stepping forward demands they face the parts of themselves they have been avoiding for years. You are sensing a real transition happening beneath the surface. Your person is now confronting their own record, and you are no longer standing in the center of that reckoning with them. You have moved ahead. There is a kind of end that whispers before it ever screams. Your person hears that whisper now. They feel it whenever they realize they no longer know where they belong with you. They watch you progressing, not from a place of anger, not from a place of jealousy, but from a place of settled clarity that they themselves have never known. They are confronting the truth they spent so long running from. What we refuse to examine will pursue us relentlessly. Your person refused to examine your connection and the real work it demanded. Now that pressure has built beyond what they can contain, they are not only afraid of losing you, they are afraid of what your absence reveals about who they have been. They recall every single moment they could have chosen honesty, but selected silence instead. Those small abandoned moments now carry enormous weight. They see that you did not simply leave. You gradually reconstructed your life to reflect the reality they were handing you. You stopped filling in their emotional gaps. You stopped trading your peace for fragments of their attention. You changed quietly and deliberately. And they noticed. You no longer reach toward them. You no longer exhaust yourself trying to be understood by someone who chose not to understand you. Your stillness is what disturbs them most, because stillness signals a decision that has already been made. You are no longer fighting for things to shift. They are learning they cannot weaponize their uncertainty to hold you suspended any longer. You are operating from self-respect now, and that rewrites every rule between you. They are afraid to reach out because they remain unready. They want to tell you that you were real to them, but they know that arriving at truth too late does not repair what is already broken. An apology without real behavioral change is just more words wrapped in pretty packaging. They are caught between who they have always been and who they would actually need to become. There is no becoming without real cost, and they are paying that cost right now in sleepless nights and hollow conversations and a longing that follows them into every room. They see that you were a mirror that reflected their own unlived potential directly back at them, and they turned away from it because they were not ready to face what they saw. Now they feel fractured inside themselves. They are beginning to understand that postponing growth does not mean escaping it. It only guarantees it will hurt far more upon arrival. They respect that you did not collapse when they withdrew. You expanded. You chose yourself, and that earns their deep and genuine admiration. They know they cannot return to you with partial effort. They are conflicted because they refuse to come back unchanged, yet they do not know who they are with their defenses fully dismantled. And here is the piece that matters most for you in this moment. Their conflict does not create any obligation for you. Their urgency does not define your value. You have grown into yourself without ever waiting for their endorsement. You are not being distant. You are being honest. Growth fundamentally changes who we can genuinely connect with. Your person senses that the version of you who would sacrifice everything for them has been replaced by someone far stronger. Perspective arrives through surviving disappointment, and surviving it has completely remade you. Your person knows that you would hear them out calmly today, and that composure is more intimidating to them than any anger ever was. Because composure demonstrates total self-command, you have been fundamentally transformed, and no part of you is obligated to reverse that transformation simply to ease their discomfort. They want closeness without confronting the hardest parts of themselves, and that contradiction keeps them completely paralyzed. They know you no longer require their validation to feel whole. You left because caring was not sufficient. You needed a partner who was actually present, not just available in the moments that were convenient for them. They are now grieving the version of you that once held on. That grief is forcing honesty out of them, but it is also arriving very late in the story. They are beginning to accept their role in creating this distance, but they remain uncertain whether reaching out will help or only deepen the wound. They are afraid, because once the truth is spoken aloud, the hiding ends permanently. You are no longer someone they can be ambiguous with. You are grounded in yourself. Your responsibility is not to rescue them from their own discomfort. Your responsibility is not to smooth the path they chose to make difficult. Your responsibility is to honor the progress you have built. You are not reacting to their panic. You are waiting for something real, and there is a profound difference between those two things that most people never learn to recognize. When someone finally sees your value after the window has nearly closed, it can feel briefly validating. But validation is not the destination. The destination is what you build with the life you have reclaimed. Panic is not readiness. Do not allow empathy to pull you backward into a dynamic that was slowly diminishing you. You reached a place where waiting ended and actual living began. Your person feels that you now move from a foundation of self-trust. You survived the specific loneliness of loving someone who was never fully present. That experience taught you the real difference between chemistry and genuine safety. And that is one of the most important distinctions a person can ever learn. Your person is only now learning that a real relationship requires sustained effort, not just initial feeling or early excitement. They are not a villain in this story, but you are absolutely not responsible for their transformation. You already made your choice, and you made it with your whole self. If they do speak, you will receive their words with a clear and settled mind. You will know almost immediately whether they have genuinely changed or whether fear is simply doing the talking. You do not need to move backward to meet them where they are. You have done the work. That is not something you undo for someone who has not yet started. This message exists to dissolve whatever uncertainty is still lingering inside you. You are not asking for too much. You are asking for the minimum requirements of something real and healthy. If a future exists between you, it must exist at the level you now occupy, not the level you once lowered yourself to in order to keep peace. If it does not exist at that level, you will continue forward carrying the peace you have already found. Walk forward in full respect for yourself. And listen closely to this next part because it is the peace that very few people talk about. As your person continues sitting with these heavy realizations, they are arriving at an understanding that genuinely shakes them. The version of you they once knew is permanently gone. You have not simply moved on. You have been entirely remade. Your person watches from a distance as you build a life that contains no vacancy shaped like them. For a long time, they soothed themselves with the belief that they were the central character in your ongoing story. They assumed your longing and your patience and your hope all orbited around them. But now they can see the story kept moving, and they have drifted steadily into the background. This recognition delivers a crushing blow to their ego, but it is also the precise force that could finally push them toward genuine growth. They are witnessing something that changes people at their core. Your happiness is no longer conditional on them. It emerged when you finally decided that your own flourishing outweighed their unrealized potential. That is not cruelty. That is wisdom. They miss the way you once looked at them, but they are also quietly intimidated by how you engage with the world now, with vision that cuts through manipulation and a heart that refuses to survive on scraps. Your person is currently sitting with the uncomfortable possibility that they were your lesson while you were their greatest missed opportunity. They are beginning to understand that you did not give up. You ascended. They are mourning the version of you that no longer exists, while recognizing they do not yet possess the strength to stand beside who you have become. They are learning, slowly and painfully, that real love is not something you store away and retrieve when it becomes convenient for you. It is a living force that requires consistent care, honest communication, and a genuinely safe environment to survive. You withdrew that environment when they refused to help you build and protect it, and you had every right to. They are watching you from a distance and learning something they should have understood far earlier. Real power is not keeping someone's heart captive while you wait for your own readiness to arrive. Real power is being strong enough to leave when that heart is not being honored. You have become that strength. While they remain suspended in the what-ifs, you are already residing inside the what-is. The urgency consuming them signals that they are only now catching up to the reality you accepted long ago. They are finally absorbing the true weight of the space they chose to leave empty. But understand this clearly: their awakening belongs entirely to their journey. It is not your destination. You have already arrived somewhere peaceful. Keep standing in your truth. Keep protecting your limits. Keep walking toward the expansion of your own becoming. You did the work that most people spend their entire lives avoiding. And now, life is simply rearranging itself around the version of you who finally knows your own worth. That is not a small thing. That is everything. That is the most powerful place a person can ever reach. As your person continues absorbing these crushing thoughts, they are reaching a final conclusion that strips away every defense they have left. They are beginning to see that the distance between you is no longer a temporary pause. It has become a mirror. A clear, unforgiving mirror reflecting back every single instance they chose absence over presence. For a long time, they believed they held the keys to your heart, that they could return the moment they decided they were finally ready. But looking at you now, they realize you did not simply change the lock. You relocated entirely. You built a new home inside yourself, and the address has changed. They are feeling the cold and heavy weight of what arrives when a person stops being an option and becomes a memory. This is the moment where their regret transforms into genuine respect for your resilience. They are struck by how you absorbed their inconsistency without becoming bitter or toxic.